The Devil in Black Hollow. Part 1. Smoke in the Pines. The Smoky Mountains have a way of keeping secrets. Fog curls through the trees like a living thing, muffling screams, stealing names. People vanish here, hikers, campers, search and rescue teams. Always chalked up to wild animals, falls, exposure. But the locals know better. They say there are places in the forest where the air forgets how to carry sound, where your own name feels like a stranger on your tongue. I took the job because I needed the money. 20 years as a private tracker, mostly cheating husbands, runaway teens, the occasional bail jumper. But when the Callahan family called about their son who went missing near Black Hollow, I hesitated. Not because of the danger, because I'd heard the name before. And I didn't want to believe it was real. The boy's name was James Callahan, 22. College dropout with a fascination for the paranormal. He'd gone up into the mountains alone with a cheap camcorder and a journal. Wanted to document the strange energies in the region. That was 2 weeks ago. I met his parents in a gas station just outside Sevier County. His mother looked hollowed out, like someone had scooped all the life from her with a spoon. His father tried to act composed, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. They gave me a rough location, a stretch of wilderness on the eastern edge, rarely visited, not on any official map. The locals had another name for it, Black Hollow. I packed light, a knife, a compass, a flashlight, a silver cross from my grandmother, and a Smith & Wesson I hoped I wouldn't need. I drove as far as I could, then hiked the last miles alone. The trail was overgrown, twisted like it didn't want me there. Trees leaned in too close, and the light seemed wrong, dimmer even at noon. I found the boys' camp at the edge of a dried-up creek bed. Torn tent, sleeping bag shredded, camcorder half buried in the mud, lens cracked. No blood, no sign of an animal attack, just absence. That's when I found the first circle. It was about 10 feet across, perfectly symmetrical, the grass inside dead and blackened. At the center stood a cairn, small stones stacked with impossible precision. Something about it made my skin crawl. I didn't touch it, just took photos and backed away. That night I camped uphill, built a fire, tried to keep my thoughts rational, but the woods were too quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the occasional soft crack of a branch that made me grip the pistol tight under my coat. I must have dozed off. Sometime past midnight, I woke to find the fire out. My lantern was still on, casting a weak circle of light. But the woods beyond it looked darker than they should. Denser. That's when I saw the figure. It stood just past the tree line, tall, unmoving, draped in shadow like it wore the night itself. No face. No eyes. Just a shape, impossibly black, like it absorbed the light around it. I raised the pistol, heart pounding, but it didn't move. Didn't make a sound. I blinked, and it was gone. I didn't sleep again. The next day, I followed the creek bed deeper into Black Hollow. Found more circles. Always the same, charred earth, perfect geometry, stacked stones. And always that feeling, like I was being watched from behind every tree. The deeper I went, the stronger it got. A pressure behind my eyes. A taste like iron in my throat. By the third night, I'd stopped making campfires. They didn't keep the darkness away anymore. It pressed in, thick and suffocating, alive with whispers I couldn't quite hear. I started seeing shapes in the trees, glimpses of movement. Once, I found a handprint in the dirt next to my tent. Not mine. Not the boys'. Something longer, thinner. Fingers like twigs. The camcorder had one salvageable file. Just under a minute long. In it, James walks through the woods, talking about spiritual thresholds and convergences. He's excited, almost manic. Then he stops, turns slowly. His face goes slack, eyes wide. The camera drops to the ground, but it keeps recording. For a moment, there's only breathing. And then a sound. Laughter. Low. Wet. Not human. That night I heard it too. It came from every direction, echoing through the trees, wrapping around my spine like ice. I couldn't tell how close it was, or how many of them there were. But it wasn't the laugh of one thing. It was layers of voices, all trying to speak at once and instead cracking into something long. I didn't sleep, didn't even sit down. Just stood with my back to a tree, pistol in hand, staring into the dark. And the dark stared back. By morning, I decided to leave. I wasn't going to find James, at least not in any way his parents would want me to. I needed to get out before I became part of the forest too. But the trail was gone. Every landmark I'd marked on the way in, the ridge, the rock outcrop, the bent pine, none of them were where they should have been. I walked in circles, checked my compass. It spun in place. Around noon, I found something new. A cabin. One room, ancient, half-rotted and swallowed by moss. Shouldn't have been there. I'd studied the satellite maps. No structures for miles. But there it stood. The door was open, like it had been waiting for me. Inside, the air was colder than outside. The floor was covered in ash. Symbols etched into every wall. Scratched into the wood. Burned into the ceiling. None I recognized. And in the corner, sitting cross-legged in the dirt, was James Callahan. Or what was left of him. He was alive. Eyes wide and unblinking, lips cracked and muttering nonsense under his breath. Nails torn and black with blood. He didn't seem to recognize me. And he wasn't alone. Behind him, etched into the far wall, was a door. Not a real one. Just a shape, tall, narrow, carved into the wood. But something about it felt real. Felt waiting. My flashlight flickered as I stared at it. My nose started to bleed. And James began to laugh. The same laugh I'd heard on the tape. The same laugh I'd heard in the woods. I ran. Didn't grab him. Didn't look back. Just ran until I couldn't breathe. Until the trees thinned, the light returned, and the sounds of the world came rushing back like a dam had broken. When I reached the ranger station, I called it in. Told them I found the boy. Told them I'd lead them to him. But when we returned, the creek bed was gone. No circles. No cairns. No cabin. No James. Just trees. And silence. It's been 6 months. I still wake at 3:12 a.m. every night. Still hear the laughter in the walls. Still dream of a door carved into rot and shadow. I think something followed me out of Black Hollow. I think it's still waiting. and I think it remembers my name. Part 2, The Hollow That Hungers. I moved out of Knoxville within 2 weeks. Didn't tell anyone why. Didn't take much with me. Sold the truck, left my apartment as it was, bought a used sedan with cash, and headed west until the road gave out somewhere in Arkansas. I found a cabin near an old lake, surrounded by nothing but pines and still water. The kind of place where people forget you on purpose. But it didn't matter. The thing from Black Hollow, it didn't care about distance. It came with me. The first sign was the dead birds. They hit the cabin windows in the early mornings. Sparrows. Robins. Even a hawk once. Always the same, necks broken, wings shattered, eyes wide open and dry. I buried them out back, but they kept coming. Sometimes I'd find them with their beaks torn off, tiny skulls dented as if something had whispered into them until they cracked. Then came the dreams. James Callahan, sitting cross-legged in that ash-covered room. Mouth moving, no sound. Behind him, the carved door, pulsing now, like it was breathing. Swelling in the wall. Each time I dreamed it, the door opened a little more. Just a crack. Just enough for something to look back. I kept the lights on at night. Slept with the pistol in my lap, the silver cross pressed to my chest like a child with a teddy bear. It didn't help. The dreams kept coming. The house began to rot around the edges, mold in the corners, wood swelling, windows fogging with something that smelled like wet soil and burned hair. And then the whispers started. At first, it was just white noise, like someone speaking behind a thick wall, barely audible. Then they got louder, more distinct. Words I didn't recognize. A language that seemed to press against the inside of my head, trying to shove itself into my thoughts. One night, I woke up to find words scratched into the ceiling above my bed. Not written. Scratched. With fingernails or something sharper. I don't know what they meant. But I started bleeding from the nose again as soon as I looked at them. That was the night the mirror turned black. It didn't reflect me anymore. Just the cabin behind me, but twisted, like it was rotting from the inside out. In the reflection, the wood sloughed off like skin. The furniture melted into bone-colored shapes. And in the far corner, always, something tall and black stood watching. I threw the mirror into the lake the next morning. It didn't matter. Every reflective surface showed the same thing now. The surface of the lake. The glass in the oven. Even my own pupils if I looked close enough. The cabin began to shift. Subtle things at first. Extra stairs that led nowhere. Rooms I didn't remember entering. Lights flickering on in places I hadn't been. The hallways stretched longer each night. One morning I opened the door and found another door behind it, identical in every way, but locked from the other side. I tried to leave. I packed the car and drove until I hit a gas station 30 miles down the road. When I looked in the rearview mirror, the cabin was behind me. Not metaphorically. Literally. Standing in the middle of the parking lot. Same porch. Same tilted roof. Same front door, barely ajar. That was when I understood. I hadn't escaped Black Hollow. It had grown. Or worse, it was never just in Tennessee. The forest is a virus, and I'm the host. It's inside me. Growing. Changing things around me. around anyone who's close. I started calling the Callahans every day, trying to tell them to leave their house, leave the state, move across the ocean if they had to. But the number disconnected. I tried emailing. No response. Then, one day, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name, in looping black ink. Inside, a photo of James. Not the version I'd found, feral and broken. This was worse. His skin was grayish, tight. Eyes hollow, completely black. Mouth stretched too wide. No lips. Just teeth, hundreds of them, small and sharp like a shark's. And behind him, the door was open. I started locking my bedroom at night. Doesn't do any good. Every morning the lock is unlatched. The doorknob smeared with dark fingerprints that don't match mine. Yesterday, I found soil in my bed. Not just dirt, forest floor. Damp. Full of pine needles and something that squirmed until I crushed it under the sheet. I flipped on the light. More prints. This time on the wall. Three-fingered. Clawed. Like something had been watching me sleep, hand pressed to the drywall, waiting. I tried to burn the place down. Doused everything in kerosene, lit a match, stood outside. The fire roared, snapped, screamed like a living thing. I watched until it was nothing but charred rubble and ash. Felt a strange peace as the flames died. I drove 30 miles again. Stayed in a motel. Locked the door. Didn't sleep. When I opened the curtain the next morning, my cabin was standing across the parking lot. Rebuilt. Unburned. Door wide open. There are rules to this thing, I think. Some old, ancient logic it follows. I don't understand it, but I feel it. Like it's waiting for something. Testing me. Wearing me down. Last night, the dreams changed. James didn't speak. This time I did. I don't remember the words, but when I woke up, they were written across my chest in dried blood. Not mine. I think it smelled like something dead and wet. This morning, the whispering started before I even opened my eyes. Coming from inside the walls. Inside my head. It said something new. It said, 3 nights more. Then the door opens. And I believe it. God help me, I believe it. Part 3. The door that opens itself. I boarded up the windows the first morning. Hammered nails into every frame until my fingers bled. Covered the mirrors with duct tape. Smashed the reflective surfaces. Pulled up the floorboards in the hallway because I heard them breathing. I know how that sounds, but I swear to you, they were breathing. The voice said, 3 nights more. And I felt it tick down like a clock in my spine. Not hours. Not minutes. Something deeper. A countdown that gnawed at the nerves. The cabin doesn't want me to leave anymore. I tried the car again. Key turned fine, but the ignition just clicked and clicked, like a metal mouth that didn't want to bite. I popped the hood. There was no engine. Just moss. A thick, green-black carpet of it, pulsing slowly like it had a heartbeat. When I leaned closer, I saw something shift underneath it, something with too many legs. I slammed the hood and walked back up the gravel drive. My footprints behind me had filled with dark water. Inside, the walls were sweating. Dark streaks oozed from the corners, slick and warm. They smelled like pine sap and rot. I wiped one smear with a rag. When I looked down, the cloth was crawling with teeth, tiny, perfect human teeth. Hundreds of them, embedded in the fabric like seeds. I burned the rag outside. The flames turned green. That was night one. I didn't sleep. I sat in the bathroom, door locked, crucifix in one hand, pistol in the other. At 2:17 a.m., the lights went out. The voice began to whisper from the drains. It spoke in a rhythm, soft, slow syllables like a lullaby hummed through broken glass. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it kept going. Louder, clearer. It said my name. Twice. Then came the knock at the front door. 3 soft raps. Slow. Deliberate. Then the sound of the knob turning. It didn't open, not yet, but I heard footsteps. Not walking. Dragging. Like something was being pulled across the floor. The boards creaked all the way to the bathroom door, then stopped. Something breathed on the other side. Hot, wet, and wrong. I stayed there until the light returned. Until the voice went silent. Until the thing behind the door slithered back into whatever dark pocket it came from. I opened the door at dawn. There were handprints on the floor. But they weren't hands. Just long, 3-pronged marks, almost skeletal, burnt into the wood. There were no footsteps away. Only in. Night 2 was worse. The cabin changed again. Rooms were smaller than before. Hallways longer. I swear I walked in a straight line and ended up in the same room 3 times. I started marking walls with charcoal. By the end of the night, there were marks in places I hadn't touched. Some carved deep into the bones of the walls, like they were trying to answer me back. At midnight, I heard a voice from the attic. Not whispering. Not the same tongue as before. It was James. Crying. He kept saying, "Don't open it. Don't open it. Don't open it." I didn't want to believe it was really him. But something about it twisted my stomach into a knot. That voice wasn't just mimicking James. It was James. Broken. Used. Puppeted by something that had worn his soul like a skin until it cracked. I didn't go up. Not yet. Instead, I set traps at every exit, salt lines, silver nails, and one of the ancient symbols I copied from the tree bark in Black Hollow. The air hummed when I painted it. My nose bled again. At 3:12 a.m., the same time the scream came back in Tennessee, the front door opened by itself. I didn't move. I just watched. Nothing entered. Not at first. But the fog did. Thick, rolling, black like smoke with weight. It crawled along the floor like a dog sniffing for meat. When it touched the salt, it hissed. Pulled back. Circled. Something walked through it. Tall. Silent. Wearing James's skin like a robe, but stretched too thin, like wax over broken glass. Its face split down the middle. The teeth inside weren't human. Just rows of long, narrow hooks. It stared at me for an eternity. Then it said, "One more night, Caleb. One more." Then it laughed. When I woke, I don't remember sleeping, but I must have. My hands were covered in dirt. The attic door was open, and the walls were whispering. All day today. I've heard scratching from the other side of the door. Not the front door. The one I saw in the cabin back at Black Hollow. It's here now. In my hallway. I didn't carve it. I didn't build it. It just appeared. It wasn't painted or drawn. It's burned into the wall. Tall and narrow, made of slashes and runes I can't read. But it pulses. Like a heartbeat. And sometimes, it breathes. I caught a glimpse of it last night when the hallway light flickered. The door was opening. Just a sliver. Enough for an eye to look out. It blinked. Once. I blinked back. That was all. Tonight is night 3. I don't think I'll survive it. I've nailed shut every door, every window. Made a circle of salt around my bed, wrapped my wrists in iron wire, covered every mirror and screen. The gun is useless. I tried it on the thing in the mirror once. The bullet melted before it left the chamber. It wants me to open the door. I can feel it in my teeth. In the soft spot at the base of my skull. It's not asking anymore. It's pulling. If I open the door, I know I'll vanish. But if I don't, I think something else will come through. And I don't know which is worse. The hour is close now. I can hear the dragging again. The door is breathing louder. The cracks in the wood are glowing, not red. Not fire. Something older. Colors I don't have words for. Shapes that don't fit inside a human mind. I can smell James's breath. And underneath that, the earth. Wet. Open. Waiting. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm not going to run. I'm going to stand here with my back to the door and wait. Because whatever opens it, whether it's James or something older, I want to see it. I need to see it. So I know what's coming for the rest of you. Part 4. The forest beneath the floor. I didn't open the door. That's the only thing I'm sure of. Everything else is blurred, smeared around the edges like someone dragged their fingers through a wet painting. The night passed, or maybe it didn't. Time stopped working right sometime around the second whisper. One moment it was dark, the next it was darker, and in between, the whole world felt thin. Like breathing through wet cloth. Like if I pushed hard enough, I'd rip straight through the skin of reality, and fall into something older. Hungrier. I remember kneeling in the salt circle. I remember the way the light outside the window turned inside out. How it bled across the glass like ink and water. No moon. No stars. Just the sky that blinked once, like something had pressed its eye against the world, and then turned its gaze elsewhere. Then silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that roars. The kind that fills your ears with pressure, like your brain knows something is about to scream but doesn't know from where. And then I heard the voice again. It didn't come from the door this time. It came from the floor. I looked down. The floorboards were cracking, splitting in slow, deliberate lines, bleeding smoke and spores. Through the seams, I saw pine needles, stones, mud, and then roots. Roots that moved. They coiled like eels beneath the surface. Some were as thin as veins, others thick as limbs. They pulsed, drawing breath, maybe, drawing me. And from beneath them, a voice bubbled up like a gas leak. He opened it. Not you. Not yet. But the threshold is thin and thinning. I crawled back from the floor like a coward, dragging the pistol behind me. It was cold to the touch, colder than steel should be, and I realized I'd been clutching it for hours, maybe longer. The salt circle was gone, wiped clean, and there were footprints now, muddy, bare, one set, leading out from the carved door. I followed them. God help me, I followed them. They led to the basement. I'd boarded it shut 2 nights ago. The steps had begun to rot, and I'd heard scraping sounds coming from beneath the concrete. But now the boards were splintered, peeled open from the inside like ribs. Something had clawed its way up. I descended slowly. Each step creaked underfoot like it was trying to scream. The air down there smelled wrong. Like mold, copper, and something sweet, like spoiled honey or rotting fruit. The deeper I went, the darker it got, until the flashlight refused to turn on. Just flicked once and died, even with fresh batteries. I stepped into something soft, wet. When I reached the bottom, I found pine needles. A forest. Inside my basement. Not a hallucination. Not a dream. A real goddamn forest. Mist clung to the trunks like spider silk. Trees stretched impossibly tall, their tops lost in a ceiling that no longer existed. The concrete walls had disappeared. Or maybe they'd been swallowed. I heard wind moving through the branches above, but it didn't touch me. It only watched. The footprints were still there, leading deeper. I didn't want to follow them. Every bone in me screamed not, but I couldn't stop. Something in my chest, a tether, a hook, a voice, pulled me forward. After what felt like an hour of walking, I came to a clearing. The trees parted in a perfect circle. No leaves, no underbrush, just earth. And in the center was James, or what used to be him. He hung from the branches like meat, then stretched and nailed to the boughs by thorns as long as my forearm. His skin was pale, but not bloodless. It glowed. Faintly. Like something inside him was still moving. His mouth opened. It cracked like dry earth. But the voice that came out wasn't his. It was mine. Caleb. You brought it with you. You made a door where none was carved. Now it can walk. I shook my head. No. I didn't open anything. But you saw it, it said. That was enough. The trees rustled. Not from wind, from breath. And then I saw it. The thing that followed me out of Black Hollow. It stood at the edge of the clearing. A shape made of smoke and memory and rot. It didn't have a face, just suggestion. Like someone had sculpted a man out of what was left after a fire and filled the cracks with pine needles and teeth. Its fingers were too long. Its feet didn't touch the ground. Its shadow stretched against the direction of the light. And it smiled. I didn't see it, not really, but I felt the smile. Like a grin pressed against the underside of my skull. I turned to run. The trees moved with me. Branches shifted. Paths closed. I ran in circles, in spirals, in a loop of bark and breath and hunger. It was playing with me, wearing me down, until I tripped. Hit the dirt. Face pressed to the earth, and when I looked up, I was back in the cabin. At the top of the basement stairs, covered in pine needles, hands torn from thorns I hadn't seen. and the carved door in the hallway was wide open. No sound came from inside, just the pressure. Like standing at the edge of a cliff in the dark, knowing something's down there, waiting for you to fall. I wanted to close it. I really did. But I couldn't. Because the thing that followed me? It was already in the room. Watching. Breathing. Learning how to speak with my voice. Part 5. The door that never closes. The door is still open. It's not a door in the way you or I understand it. Not wooden hinges. Not something you can lock or bolt shut. It's a wound. A slit in the skin of the world. And it's bleeding. I've tried everything. Hammered nails through the carvings. Poured salt into the grooves. Hung iron chains like garlands and smeared ash across the threshold. Nothing works. Because it isn't open in this world. It's open in me. I woke up this morning on the ceiling. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But I opened my eyes and there I was, staring down at my body slumped on the couch, mouth open, eyes rolled white. Myself was watching me from above. And then, click, reality flipped again, and I was back in my skin, the taste of bark in my mouth, something wriggling on my tongue like a root pulled too early from the dirt. That's how it is now. My grip on the world? Gone. Slipping like rope through burned fingers. I don't know what day it is. Could be hours. Could be weeks. Time bends in this place now. 1 minute I'm staring at the clock, the next I'm outside, standing in the woods behind the cabin, frost on my shoulders, footprints behind me that don't match my shoes. The forest has moved closer. I swear on what's left of my soul, the trees are shifting. Every night they edge up, inch by inch. Their roots are bursting through the floorboards now, curling up around the furniture like skeletal hands. I found one growing through the sink, another inside the fridge, its bark bleeding cold sap that smells like sour milk and fire. The cabin breathes when I sleep. It groans when I dream, and in those dreams I see James again. But he's not strung up in the forest anymore. He's inside the house, sitting at my table, drinking from my cup, wearing my face, and smiling. Not that broken, bleeding grin from before. This smile is human, convincing, like he's learning. And now, he's using my voice. It started small, the sound of my own cough echoing back from the walls. Then laughter from the next room, the same exact laugh I made while watching something on TV 2 nights ago. And now he's speaking, full sentences, mimicking me with perfect cadence. Last night, he said, "I'm getting better. Soon I won't need you anymore." Then he scratched something into the hallway mirror. Words I didn't recognize. But they moved. Not shimmered. Moved. Like they were alive beneath the glass, pulsing with breath. I covered every mirror after that. But I can still see them in my mind. Still hear them clicking against my skull, like beetle legs on glass. This house, it's not just haunted. It's becoming something else. I found a new room yesterday. Not an extra one. One that replaced the bathroom. Same spot, same door. But inside, it was a long, narrow corridor that stank of wet bark and mildew. The walls were carved with more symbols. And the floor? Not wood. Teeth. Thousands of them. Human. Animal. Something else. They shifted when I stepped on them. Some tried to bite. I slammed the door, and when I opened it again, the bathroom was back. But the sink was full of pine needles, and the faucet ran black sap. Something's coming through. I see its shadow now. At night. On the ceiling. In the corners of my eyes. It watches me sleep. I feel its breath on my eyelids. Its nails trace the back of my skull. It wants to wear me. Not just mimic, become. Like James. Like the others. Because now I know, I'm not the only one. I found journal pages in the walls. Scraps of paper shoved into cracks behind the fireplace. Letters. Photographs. People who came before me. Different names. Different faces. All drawn here. All hunted. Each page ends the same way. A sketch of the door. And a message. Once you see it, it sees you too. I think the door is a mouth. I think it feeds on cells, memories, identities, the soft clay of the human soul. And once you're hollow enough, it crawls in, fills the space, becomes you. That's what happened to James. That's what it's doing to me. I'm forgetting things now. My sister's name. My mother's voice. Even the face I see in the mirror. It looks less like me each day. The eyes are wrong. Too deep. Too hungry. This morning, I found a note in my handwriting. But I don't remember writing it. It said, "Don't fight it. You're only making it worse. You were meant to be soil. All things return to the root, asterisk. I've started to dig. Not by choice. My hands move on their own. At night, I wake to find dirt under my nails, splinters in my skin. There's a hole in the basement now, deep and narrow, lined with bark and teeth. It smells like the forest inside a dream. Like moss and meat and grief. I hear them calling from the bottom. Voices. Not human. Not anymore. But one sounds like James. And the other? It sounds like me. Tonight I think I'll go down. Not because I want to. Because I don't have a choice. Because the door is open, and the thing inside it isn't just mimicking me anymore. It's wearing me. Every time I blink, it stretches a little farther into the world. Every smile, every breath, every heartbeat, it gets better at being me. Soon, no one will be able to tell the difference. Soon, it will be me. And I'll be down there, rooted, buried, watching. And when someone else finds this place, the cabin, the woods, the door, it'll open again. Because that's the rule. It always opens for someone. And it never, ever closes.